Imagine waking up tomorrow with the exact same 24 hours as everyone else, but by the end of the year, your life looks completely different from theirs. The difference isn't luck, connections, or talent. It's your thinking. Today, I'm going to show you how the way you think can either keep you trapped in scarcity or unlock a life of abundance, power, and unstoppable growth. Mindset shapes destiny in ways most people underestimate. Long before results appear in your bank account, your career, or your relationships, they first take shape in your thoughts. The way you interpret events, the meaning you assign to challenges, and the expectations you hold about yourself quietly direct your actions every single day. And your actions, repeated over time, create your destiny. It's not dramatic in the moment. It's subtle. It's daily. But it is powerful beyond measure. A person with poor thinking often believes circumstances control their future. They wait for better conditions, better connections, better luck. When something goes wrong, they see it as proof that life is unfair or that success is reserved for someone else. That belief influences their energy. They hesitate, they tout, they play small. And those small decisions compound into small results. On the other hand, someone with rich thinking understands that while they cannot control every event, they can control their response. They see challenges as training. They view obstacles as temporary. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They ask, what can I learn from this? That one shift changes their emotional state, and emotional state drives behavior. When you feel empowered, you act boldly. When you act boldly, you create opportunities others never see. Mindset determines whether you interpret failure as a verdict or as feedback. If you believe failure defines you, you retreat. If you believe failure refines you, you persist. The person who persists inevitably gains skills, insights, resilience, and connections that the person who quits never develops. Over time, that persistence separates extraordinary lives from average ones. Your beliefs also shape what you believe you deserve. If deep down you feel unworthy of success, you will unconsciously sabotage progress. You might procrastinate, undercharge, avoid visibility, or settle for less than your potential. But when you decide you're capable and deserving of growth, your standards rise. You begin to demand more from yourself. You prepare differently, you show up differently, and the world responds differently. Destiny is not built in a single breakthrough moment. It is built in thousands of small decisions guided by your internal narrative. The thoughts you repeat become beliefs. Beliefs become habits. Habits become outcomes. Change the thought pattern and you alter the trajectory of your life. When you truly understand that mindset shapes destiny, you stop waiting for external change and start cultivating internal transformation. You guard your thoughts, you feed your mind with empowering ideas. You surround yourself with people who challenge you to think bigger. And as your thinking expands, so does your capacity to create results that once seemed impossible. Scarcity versus abundance is not about how much money you have. It is about how you interpret the world around you. A scarcity mentality believes there is never enough opportunities, never enough success to go around, never enough recognition, never enough security. When someone operates from scarcity, every situation feels like a competition for limited resources. If someone else wins, they feel they must have lost. If someone else succeeds, they assume there is less success available for them. That belief quietly breeds fear, comparison, jealousy, and hesitation. Scarcity thinking narrows vision. It causes people to protect instead of create. They cling tightly to what they have because they fear losing it. They avoid taking calculated risks because loss feels permanent and devastating. They may resist sharing knowledge because they believe helping others will somehow diminish their own advantage. Decisions are made from fear rather than possibility. Over time, that fear-based decision-making limits growth. It keeps income capped, relationships guarded, and creativity suppressed. Abundance thinking, on the other hand, expands vision. It is the belief that value can be created, that opportunities can be generated, and that success is not a finite pie with only a few slices. Someone with an abundance mentality understands that collaboration can multiply outcomes, They believe skills can be developed, networks can be built, and ideas can evolve into new possibilities. Instead of asking, what if I lose? They ask, what if this works? That single question opens doors that scarcity thinking would never even knock on. An abundance mindset does not ignore reality or pretend resources are infinite. Rather, it focuses on resourcefulness. It asks, how can I use what I have right now? When obstacles appear, the abundant thinker searches for alternatives. If one door closes, they look for another path. If money is tight, they look for new ways to create value. If knowledge is lacking, they seek mentors or education. They believe solutions exist, even if they have not yet discovered them. Scarcity reacts emotionally. Abundance responds strategically. Scarcity sees rejection as proof of inadequacy. Abundance sees it as redirection. Scarcity hesitates to invest in growth because it fears loss. Abundance in skills, relationships, and experiences because it trusts long-term returns. This difference compounds over time. The abundant thinker builds momentum because they are willing to move, experiment, and expand. The most powerful shift happens internally. When you genuinely believe there's enough opportunity for you, your energy changes. You become more generous, more confident, more open. People are naturally drawn to that energy. Partnerships form, ideas grow, doors open. The world begins to reflect back the mindset you project, and what once felt limited begins to feel full of possibility. Responsibility versus blame is one of the sharpest dividing lines between poor thinking and rich thinking. It determines whether a person remains stuck in reaction or steps into creation. Blame feels natural. It is easy. When something goes wrong, you can point to the economy, your upbringing, your boss, your lack of connections, bad timing, unfair systems, and sometimes those factors are real. But the moment you assign full power to them, you surrender your own. Poor thinking looks outward first. It asks, who caused this? Instead of what can I do now? Blame offers temporary emotional relief because it protects the ego. If it's someone else's fault, you don't have to change, you don't have to stretch, you don't have to confront uncomfortable truths, not your habits, preparation, or consistency. But that comfort is expensive. It costs growth. It costs momentum. It costs a future you could have built. Rich thinking embraces responsibility, not as guilt, but as power. Responsibility says, even if I didn't create this situation, I am responsible for my response. That shift changes everything. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for rescue. You stop hoping someone else will fix it. You begin asking better questions. What could I have done differently? What skill do I need to develop? How do I make sure this doesn't happen again? Those questions move you forward. Taking responsibility strengthens self-trust. Each time you face a setback and choose ownership, you prove to yourself that you are capable of growth. You build resilience because you are no longer fragile in the face of difficulty. Instead of collapsing under criticism, you analyze it. Instead of denying mistakes, you correct them. Builds competence, and competence builds confidence. Blame keeps you emotionally reactive. Responsibility makes you strategic. If a project fails, blame focuses on the team, the market, or the circumstances. Responsibility examines planning, communication, timing, and execution. This doesn't mean you ignore external factors. It means you focus your energy on what you can influence. Energy directed toward influence creates change. Energy directed toward complaint creates frustration. Over time, responsibility compounds into leadership. People trust those who own outcomes. They respect individuals who say, I'll handle it, instead of, it wasn't my fault. In careers, in business, in relationships, the person who takes ownership rises faster because they are seen as dependable and solution-oriented. When you fully embrace responsibility, you realize something powerful. Your life improves in D, right proportion to the level of ownership you are willing to accept. The more you own, the more you can change. And the more you can change, the more control you gain over your direction, your results, and your future growth through action. And vision is the cornerstone of rich thinking, the engine that turns potential into reality. It is not enough to dream or to plan. Ideas without execution are invisible, powerless, and fleeting. The person who achieves extraordinary results understands that vision alone does not create transformation. Vision sets the direction. but action propels the journey. Without consistent, deliberate action, even the most brilliant plan remains a fantasy, a story told only in the mind. Rich thinking requires the courage to move, to take steps even when the path is uncertain, and to adjust along the way. Poor thinking often mistakes comfort for progress. It overanalyzes, waits for perfect timing, and postpones action under the guise of preparation. It measures readiness in certainty rather than impossibility. That hesitation is costly because life rarely offers perfect conditions. Waiting for ideal circumstances guarantees stagnation. Opportunities pass while fear and indecision occupy the mind. Growth does not reward perfection. It rewards persistence and movement. Every small step, executed with intention, compounds into momentum, which becomes the force that carries you toward results that once seemed impossible. Vision provides clarity and focus. It allows a person to see beyond immediate obstacles and temporary setbacks. Without vision, action is scattered and inconsistent, prone to distraction and doubt. When you combine vision with action, each step has purpose. Every decision aligns with a broader goal. That combination creates a magnetic force, attracting resources, opportunities, and people who resonate with your trajectory. Vision fuels motivation. Action translates that motivation into measurable outcomes. It is the synergy between the two that defines rich thinking. Rich thinkers also embrace calculated risks. They understand that action without risk is often comfort masquerading as progress. They take bold steps because they know that failure is not the opposite of success, but part of the process. Each action provides feedback, teaches lessons, and informs the next move. The growth is not linear. It is iterative, dynamic, and expansive. Each attempt expands skill, knowledge, and resilience, building the capacity to handle more complex challenges and greater opportunities. A key element of this mindset is self-accountability. Rich thinking demands that you track results, measure performance, and refine strategy. It is not blind optimism or random effort. It is disciplined, purposeful movement toward a clearly defined destination. This approach distinguishes those who remain spectators in life from those who create, innovate, and transform their circumstances. Growth through action and vision requires commitment to continual learning, adaptation, and relentless pursuit of excellence, creating a trajectory that compounds exponentially over time.